It is Thursday, June 4th. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, and you found us here on the Weather Desk. We're going to tackle today's top weather headlines, some of the big stories going on, not only here in Hampton Roads, but across the country. We'll talk about some weather things, some maybe weather or climate-related things. We broadcast from the 13 News Now studios in Southeast Virginia. Let's jump into our topics today. Here's a look. We do have, first of all, more information on that Buxton home that collapsed a couple days ago. We talked about that yesterday morning on the Weather Desk, but now we have the report from our crews that traveled down to Buxton to check it out. Some of the debris will show you what's going on down there and the cleanup efforts that will be ongoing. It's always a problem when we lose a structure into the ocean because all of that building material just kind of hangs out on the beach for a while, and it is a cleanup effort before you can go back to enjoying the coastal areas down there. All right, we do have the rip current risk continuing for parts of the area, while it has gotten much better for others. I will break that down with the update, and not just here in Hampton Roads in Northeast North Carolina, but we'll look up and down the East Coast. So if you are maybe tuning in from another part of the country and you have interest in that, we'll be sharing some of that. We'll also take a look at the tropical weather update in the Atlantic, what's going on or still not happening just yet in the Atlantic. We're also going to take a look at the Pacific, and there I now have three different areas we're watching. There is Tropical Storm Amanda and what may quickly become our next named system, ramping up along with a third area. So a lot to talk about in the Pacific. We're also heading into the peak of the tick season. So as we get into these warm months here, June into July, that tick season will peak, and there's some important things to know and how to deal with a tick bite if you do get one. We'll talk more about that. In addition to those stories, we also have a new proposed way to control mosquitoes. Talk about this. It's a little controversial. Some corners saying, hey, don't mess too much with the environment, the food chains, all that kind of stuff. Others saying these mosquitoes pose a real threat to human health and can spread disease, some other things. And they have an interesting way to try to combat that. We'll talk about it. And I've got your weekend outlook. That's all coming up in this edition of the Weather Desk. We're going to start off by heading back down to the Outer Banks. You can see central U.S., some showers and storms. We'll talk a little bit about the severe weather outlook as well. No severe weather here on the East Coast. It has been gorgeous, low humidity, plenty of sunshine, very, very nice. But the problem, we had a pretty strong area of low pressure offshore a couple days ago. That had the winds cranking and the seas were pretty angry, and we suffered some beach erosion down along the Outer Banks. It was specifically down in Buxton where one of the homes right here along Ocean Drive, I believe it was this one, actually fell in and collapsed with the beach erosion taking place right there under the home. We're getting a closer look at that home that collapsed there at the Outer Banks earlier this week. Here's a look at the home, still basically just teetering, standing there on Ocean Drive. That was over Memorial Day weekend. It was, in fact, swept away Tuesday night. It left debris scattered along the shoreline and in the water. It's also now one of more than 20 homes to collapse on that stretch of beach in the last few years. Photojournalist Michael Woodward has a look at the cleanup efforts.
You get tornadoes in the cities that, come here as hurricanes and northeasterns, and it takes the erosion. Eventually, the house can't stand up to it no more. Sooner or later, until, right now there's no dunes or nothing, anyhow, protection. So it's going to happen eventually. There'll be more water coming, more erosion. You can't stop it. I mean, they spent whatever it was, millions in Buxton here a few years ago, and the first Northeastern, which was a powerful one day, wiped it away. I mean, this is government owned. You can't just do what you want. A lot of homeowners like, why can't we put a bulkhead out here or something, protect our land? You can't, because they own that beach.
We're going to take a look at the rip current threats now. Again, that is looking in the northeast U.S., but I want to start off by taking a closer look down to the south. And along the Florida coast, you can see these areas shaded in red here. This area up through Jacksonville and down through Daytona, all of this still with a high threat of rip currents. As you come up across Georgia, it transitions right around the middle part of the shoreline there to moderate, and it is generally moderate up through Myrtle Beach, so things not looking too bad. As you look down towards Wilmington, these areas farther south along the North Carolina coast, moderate threat. But coming up again, as you make the turn up towards Ocracoke, you do have some high risk, and then it becomes more moderate right along Ocracoke. You make the turn at Buxton, that area we just showed you the video from, that house that collapsed. This area is still with a high threat of rip currents, some more wave action there. Things are easing here in Virginia Beach. We've gone from that high threat with the really rough wave action. The waves are calmer today, about 2 to 3 feet, and that's the case here. So now moderate in Virginia Beach, and then as we look up from Wallops up towards Ocean City, there you have a moderate risk. It's a lower risk as you get up to the Delaware beaches, and then you head up through the Jersey Shore. There's not the threat there either. Again, the low pressure that really churned things up is pulling farther away. High pressure is building, and that's providing light winds. A little more moderate threat up along Long Island, but other than that, things are looking pretty good. Again, a closer look at our local waters with that moderate threat for Virginia Beach. So we're taking a live look around the area. You see the sunshine, light winds. This is down at the Oregon Inlet, so this is protected here at the marina. That's why you're not seeing much wave action there. You can see at Virginia Beach, we do have the waves coming in, and it looks like there are a few people out in the surf, so maybe the lifeguards are just issuing caution about that. We've been talking about this, in Hampton Roads, how it was so bad. Remember, the threat here in Hampton Roads has been downgraded today. We had the red flags that were flying at the Virginia Beach oceanfront the last 2 days. You see them right there. Beachgoers were advised not to go in past their knees yesterday, so things definitely improving.
We watched actually somebody not too long ago was out boogie boarding and got caught in a rip current, and we saw the lifeguards go out and get them. So that was pretty crazy to see. But yeah, we're keeping it kind of cautious today.
And that is good that they do use caution. Now, again, it is moderate today. Lifeguards in Virginia Beach say they rescued 600 people last summer. So if you see red flags flying at the beach, always check with the lifeguard about the restrictions before just heading out into the water. Now, again, the flags that are used to warn beachgoers of the conditions, red flags aren't the only colors you need to be concerned with. There are several different colors. You can see there's green. If you see the green flags flying, it's fine. You're safe to swim. Conditions are pretty calm. When you see yellow, okay, there's that moderate threat of rip currents, and you've got some wind, maybe some surf issues to deal with. This is what we have. Use caution. When the red flags are out, that's when the lifeguards say, hey, no swimming. You are in dangerous conditions there. There's a high risk of rip currents. You might have some heavy surf and that stronger current that you have to be worried about. When the flags are purple, that means there's been the presence of some dangerous marine life. You think about that. You spot something out in the water that could pose a threat. You don't want to get out there if we know that there's something close to the shore or in the surf or swim zone. So that could include jellyfish, stingrays, and other dangerous larger fish. You think about some sharks. We don't have a lot of them near the coast, but they are out there, and occasionally we do have some interactions with sharks, so you need to be mindful if you see the purple flag. And then double red, water closed, no public use allowed, and that's when it's most dangerous. Typically, we see those going up during storm warnings. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have the governor laying out how the Commonwealth is preparing for the hurricane season. Her message to Virginians after this. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. It's time to talk tropics. And as we take a look here at the Atlantic tropical activity over this time span from 1944 to 2020, kind of charting where we've seen hurricanes and tropical storms, all the name systems. That's that top line here shaded in red, and then the number of actual hurricanes. You see that peak coming up later. Right now, obviously, we're just into the beginning. It is the first week of the season here as it began June 1st. The peak of the season comes around September 10th, and of course, it runs through November 30th. Well, sure, peak activity is still a ways away, but Governor Abigail Spanberger is encouraging Virginians to prepare now. Layla Cox has details.
Hurricane season is officially underway for the Commonwealth. Outside of Virginia's Emergency Operations Center, Governor Abigail Spanberger stressed preparation before storm system develops.
We are working together to collaborate across state agencies, but first responders, community organizations, and individual Virginians are important, are essential to our effective disaster response.
Tropical systems can bring damaging winds, flooding rain, storm surge along the coast, and power outages. The greatest risk for Virginia is typically from late summer into early fall. Emergency officials urge Virginians to have a plan of their own.
It's important to have emergency food, water, and other supplies to last at least 72 hours. If there's a little damage and you can't get out to the store, what do you need in your home?
Taylor's Do-It Center in Norfolk tells 13 News Now they are stocked up on hurricane readiness essentials.
For just like initial preparedness, things like lumber, tarps, having things on hand like generators, electrical, or emergency lighting.
Tools are also available at the hardware store for once the storm passes.
And then towards like recovery, some of these power tools like the chainsaws for if any trees fall down, blowers for any kind of like debris, anything like that. Just kind of get yourself all the way through from beginning to end.
Layla Cox, 13 News Now.
All right, so let's get a check on where the tropics stand this morning. I mentioned an area of low pressure. This is not tropical. It's associated with fronts. As a matter of fact, you can see very clearly with that low here, it's actually attached to an occluded front, a sign that it's a pretty mature area of low pressure. And then there's a cold front that trails down from that. Back in the eastern part of the Gulf, we do have some convection or storminess. A lot of little scattered showers and then some more embedded heavier thunderstorms out there. The central and the western part of the Gulf pretty quiet right now. As we take a look at our local waters, things are calming as that low moves away. Again, we're not seeing much here in the central or southern parts of the Gulf. We'll keep an eye to this, but it's not going to get organized as it's drifting and starting to already interact a bit with Florida. The Caribbean looking good, and as we look out across the rest of the basin, things are pretty quiet right now, and let's hope it stays that way. The forecast from the Hurricane Center not calling for any tropical development over the coming week. That's great news. All right, we're going to turn our attention to the Eastern Pacific because there it is a much different story. As we look across the eastern side of the Pacific, you'll notice some deep convection, some more storminess here, not far from Nicaragua. We've been talking about this area kind of blossoming with the storm south of San Salvador. Some more development right in here starting to fire up, and the Hurricane Center is watching these two areas. We've been keeping an eye to this. We will as well, along with Amanda. This is Amanda up here moving along. That is our first named system in the Eastern Pacific. Now, the chances for the next one, pretty good, 70% chance that we could see some development somewhere in here, and then you can see a 50% chance. So these two areas we're watching closer to the coast as we look out at Amanda. Right now, those maximum winds at 40 miles per hour, gusting to 50. The good news is that this thing is still a good 1,500 to 1,600 miles from the Big Island there of Hawaii, and it is not posing a threat to any land as it is forecast to weaken and wind down. All right, so that's what's happening in the tropics. As we take a quick look across the country, just want to let you know this morning we're tracking some showers. As far as the severe weather potential today across the upper Midwest, really it's the north central part of the country into the Dakotas, the Great Plains region, more likely to see some of those stronger storms. Slight risk there. There is a tornadic threat there. It's just a slightly elevated risk, but anywhere from Huron down through Hot Springs, Rapid City, back towards Gillette, in Wyoming there is that potential. For Nebraska, Omaha, down through Lincoln, back over to St. Joe's, Missouri, you could see maybe a few stronger storms down through Salina, Kansas. So we'll be watching those areas. For tomorrow, the chance for tornadoes back across the southeast part of Nebraska. And then you can see the severe weather threat extends all the way through Iowa and back towards Wisconsin. These are general thunderstorms, that greatest chance for tornadoes again in this part of Nebraska. That's for tomorrow. All right, as we look ahead to Saturday, there's also going to be severe weather chances for eastern Montana and then back around the Great Lakes. You could see Cleveland, possibly Toledo. We'll be watching these areas back over to Erie, Pennsylvania, even through Pittsburgh and back towards Buffalo. Some rough weather there, Rochester, all the way through Vermont and New Hampshire. So we'll be watching all of this for you over the coming days, and we'll keep you updated if anything does develop. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about tick season. We're approaching the peak, what you need to know if you get bit by one of those critters this summer. Plus, one tech giant is working on a new plan to control the mosquito population. How it's going to fight mosquitoes with mosquitoes. We are enjoying a beautiful day across Hampton Roads, another one of those Thompson Creek Window Company sky views showing you the sunshine up in Newport News. I wanted to focus for a second on the dew points. It's pretty cool out there as far as the dew points go. We're in the 40s and 50s, meaning the air is pretty dry. It's very comfortable out there. As we look forward, we're going to see the dew points remaining pretty low tomorrow, but building through the weekend. Heat is certainly going to build, and it's going to become increasingly humid by the end of next week. So just getting you ready as we have a hot weekend, cooler Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then warm again by the end of next week. With the warmer temperatures comes increasing tick activity, and we are reaching the peak of that activity typically in late June and July. Those tiny bug bites can lead to big problems if you don't know what to do next. ABC's Melissa Adon explains.
Some ticks can spread disease. If you find one attached to your skin, the CDC recommends these steps. First, remove it right away. Use tweezers or your fingers. Grab the tick as close to the skin as you can. Pull straight out with steady pressure. Do not twist or squeeze it. If part of the tick stays in the skin, leave it. Your skin will heal. Get rid of the tick by sealing it in a sealed container, wrapping it in tape, putting it in alcohol, or flushing it down the toilet. Do not crush it. After that, wash your hands and the bite area with soap and water or alcohol. And don't forget to check your body for more ticks. Your next steps depend on how long the tick was attached and where you live, since ticks in some areas are more likely to carry infections. Use the CDC.gov's Tick Bite Guide to help decide what to do. If you get a rash or fever in the next weeks, call your doctor right away. With this Medical Minute, I'm Melissa Adon.
Some very good information there. Now, ticks aren't the only insect that you'll have to deal with this summer. Mosquito activity also peaks between now and August. But one tech giant is working on a plan to cut down on those annoying pests. Google is requesting federal approval to release 32 million mosquitoes in California and Florida as part of its debugging program. The plan is to release the insects that are male because they don't bite or carry disease like their female counterparts. Those male mosquitoes will then mate with females as a way of population control.
They put this bacteria into the mosquitoes and it makes them sterile. If they go and mate with wild female mosquitoes, there's very few progeny in the next generation. If they do this on a large enough scale, the mosquito population is going to crash. They're fighting mosquitoes with mosquitoes.
All right, so it's not clear exactly where in California and Florida the mosquitoes would be released if Google gets approval. All right, coming up, we have a closer look at the forecast for Hampton Roads. We'll check out the upcoming weekend. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the weather desk. All right, you can see some folks out in the water now, so lifeguards must be allowing them to get out there with that moderate threat of rip currents. It's not as bad as it was, but you can see again, looks like somebody trying to paddle out maybe on a surfboard there. They don't typically allow surfing in the swimming zones, but maybe because they're having somewhat restricted swimming access, they're allowing some of those folks to go out. I'm not exactly sure what's happening there, but you can see the waves coming in. They're still breaking about 2 to 3 feet in the surf zone with some larger swells approaching, so folks still need to use caution. That, again, a live look at the Virginia Beach ocean front. If you're going to the beaches, temperatures in the mid-70s, very high UV index, moderate threat of rip current, 66 the water temperature, as we mentioned. Here's a look at the allergy report for today. Low tree pollen and mold. Grass pollen is moderate. For the weekend, 96 on Saturday, 94 on Sunday. And if you've got a road trip planned for the weekend, we're going to see hot conditions. D.C., Charlottesville, Roanoke, Raleigh, Richmond, Outer Banks a little cooler there, with temperatures expected to be in the lower 80s. We'll take a quick look at the 7-day forecast. It's a simple one. Sunshine today and tomorrow, mostly sunny Saturday. A front comes through late Sunday. We may see a few late day storms there, and then cooler air moves back in for early next week. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of the Weather Desk. If you're here in Hampton Roads, enjoy the beautiful weather. Have a good one.